Jagadish. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today at Australia's home of science, the beautiful Shine Dome. And greetings to all of you who are watching online. I'm Professor Hans Bachor, and I will be your MC for this afternoon. More from me shortly, but first I would like to warmly welcome the President of the Australian Academy of Science, Professor Jagadish, AC, to officially welcome you to today's event.
Thank you, Hans, and good afternoon. Guten Tag, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet, Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. I also acknowledge and pay my respect to the traditional owners and elders past, present of all the lands on which the Academy operates and its fellows and staff and live and work. They hold the memories, traditions, cultures, and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of Australia. Sigrid Sommer, Charge d'Affaires of the Federal Republic of Germany to Canberra, distinguished members of the jury, Falling Walls Lab presenters, fellows of the Academy, event partners, colleagues, welcome. The very first Falling Walls Lab took place in Berlin on 7th of November 2011, marking the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. It has grown from strength to strength, with 79 international labs taking place in 2023, and we are delighted to partner with the Falling Walls Foundation to deliver Falling Walls Lab Australia for the 8th time this year. Each year, on 7th of November, 100 winners from international labs gather in Berlin to pitch their breakthrough project to a global audience of industry leaders, decision makers, investors, and international media. We are lucky that Australia has once again been invited to send 3 presenters to the Falling Walls Lab finale, the top 3 presenters from today's event. Today's presenters were selected in heats held in Adelaide, Brisbane, and Sydney. Falling Walls Lab Adelaide, organized by the University of Adelaide, Falling Walls Lab Brisbane, organized by the University of Queensland, and Falling Walls Lab Sydney, organized by the DAAD, the German Academic Exchange Service, and Euraxis, Australia, New Zealand. The Academy would like to acknowledge these partners for their support and congratulate them on selecting such wonderful finalists for today's event. I would further like to acknowledge and thank the following partners and sponsors for their generous support of today's event: the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany, Canberra, the DAAD, the Euraxis, Australia, New Zealand, and ZACE. Your valued support brings this event to life and helps ensure the continuation of excellent and innovative scientific research in Australia. I'm excited to hear from the 10 presenters and wish you all the very best of luck. And now I would like to welcome Sigrid Sommer, the Charge d'Affaires of the Federal Republic of Germany to Canberra, onto the stage to say a few words. Welcome, Sigrid.
Honorable President Jagadish, dear Falling Walls finalists, distinguished guests, distinguished jury members. So good to meet in person after the years of the pandemic. Many thanks for having me. It's a great honor and pleasure to join you here today. The Falling Walls project is a very special project for us. It's about bringing people together, people of different backgrounds. It's about innovation and shaping together the future in science, but also in society and economics. It has become an important part of our bilateral cooperation. Germany and Australia share the same values and interest in a strong international order and the rule of law. We jointly strive to strengthen education, research, and science. We jointly look for ideas and projects that literally have the ability to tear down walls and connect the world. Given the tremendous challenges that we face together globally, like the climate change, this couldn't be more topical. I'm deeply impressed with the innovations that you, the finalists, have brought us. From cancer research, food sovereignty, and cheap green electricity, to solutions for inequitable education and industrial lubricant pollution. Congratulations to all of you for being part of the Falling Walls Lab Australia and Falling Walls Venture 2023. Thank you for traveling from many different states to be here today. It's absolutely inspiring to see this diverse and unique group of finalists, including so many young women. The fall of the Iron Curtain in Europe in 1989 paved the way to overcome the division of Germany and Europe. The fall of the wall in Berlin was a decisive moment in my life. I was born and raised as a West Berliner in a divided city. My family was always convinced that the wall could not last because it was not normal to live in a divided city, in a divided country, and a divided Europe. However, we didn't dare to think that we would see the fall of the wall. So what do I take from that? It means, to me, don't stop thinking beyond walls. Believe in the sometimes unbelievable, and great things may happen. Whoever will go to Berlin, have an awesome time. Nomad Atomics will definitely be part of this, as they have been selected already as one of the winners of the Falling Walls Venture in the category Science Startups. Congratulations, well done. Berlin is an amazing city that changes all the time, and yes, as a Berliner, I'm for sure biased. However, today it's a united city. Young people do not refer any longer to West or East Berliners, and this is exactly how it is supposed to be after the wall has fallen. I want to conclude by wishing you all success in your work and endeavors. Thank you for your great efforts, impressive creativity, and boundary-breaking projects. Thank you for being part of Falling Walls.
Thank you, Frau Sommer. Thank you, Jagadish. And now we are ready. Almost. It's a great pleasure to be your MC for Falling Walls Lab 2023. And we have 10 presenters sitting excited to share their impressive and groundbreaking work with you. But I have to do a bit of housekeeping here first. Please let me remind you to turn any electronic devices to silent, including your mobile phones, and ask you not to take calls during the presentations or the questions afterwards. In the very unlikely event that the evacuation alarm sounds, please stop what you're doing and calmly make your way to the nearest exit, following the staff's instructions. Please be aware that those around you might need assistance to do so, and you should assemble at the evacuation point, which is in that direction between the Shine Dome and the Ian Potter House. Now, about the program, you find the details for the Academy Wi-Fi network, silent, and the QR code to the event webpage is already there. Now, the format is very tight. Each presenter has just 3 minutes to present, followed by a 2-minute Q&A with the jury. Now, the jury will assess the presentations against 3 criteria: the breakthrough factor, the relevance and impact, and the structure of the presentation and the performance. Following the 10 presentations, there will be an afternoon tea while the jury deliberates and decides on the winners. Now, we have a jury. I can see it here. We are most grateful to the panel of eminent judges who will select the winners of today's competition. And the judges are, and may I ask you to raise your hand when I call your name, Professor Chennupati Jagadish, Professor Lynn Beasley, Julia Kauter, Assistant Professor or Associate Professor Angela Laird, Professor Michael Schütz, and Andrew Woodland. Now, they come from across Australia, from the Academy, from the EMCR Forum, from the Trauma Institute in Queensland, and from our sponsor, the company Zeiss. So you see this is representing a wealth of knowledge about what can be translated from the ideas into the future. Now, I have a great pleasure to introducing you to today's presenters. We have Emma-Anne Karlsen from the University of Queensland Fraser Institute. We have Sahand Karimi-Arpanahi from the University of Adelaide. Alex Griffin, the Cerebral Palsy Alliance and the University of Sydney. Sera Susan Jacob from the University of Queensland. Andrew Mencel from the University of Adelaide. Ooh. And now I have to quickly react. Dr. Papagianis from Monash University. Hemanshi Galaiya from the University of Queensland. Peter Elango from RMIT University. Yulong Sun of the University of New South Wales. And last but not least, Ellie Treloar from the University of Adelaide. And this will be the order in which they will be presenting. Good. Fantastic, you are practicing. So, we now have, I think, a presentation from Marin, who won the presentation last year and actually went to Berlin.
Hello, my name's Marin Fraser, and last year I was announced as the winner of Falling Walls Lab Australia. I'm very sad that I can't be there to join you today, but I am literally as far away as you can get, undertaking a postdoc placement at Harvard University in Boston. Last year, as the winner of Falling Walls Lab, I got to attend the final in Berlin, Germany, along with the runners-up. Berlin is a beautiful city, and it was such an amazing experience to be able to head over to that part of the world and share my research. We got to spend a week together as a cohort, learning about each other's projects, getting to know each other, learning all about the amazing projects happening all over the world, as well as learning about the research scene in Germany as well as other countries, meeting people within the publishing industry and other scientific or industrial organizations. Along the way, I had amazing support from the Australian Academy of Science, who was really there to help me organize my trip, support me while I was over there, and were just an amazing resource to have as a connection there. So congratulations on getting this far, and today please enjoy your moment in the spotlight, get up on that stage and let your enthusiasm show through. Best of luck with the presentations, and I'll be happily watching along.
Thank you, Maren, for your encouraging words. So, you, the audience here in the Shine Dome, and the audience online, are central to our event. We will hear about amazing ideas to improve the future, and you all, in some way, can help to turn these into reality. As Jagadish has already mentioned, all presenters have already won in the regional events in Brisbane, Sydney, and Auckland. They were selected under the same selection criteria: originality, ideas, presentation, impact. Our three winners, who will travel to Berlin, will be decided by the jury. But what will your choice be here in the room? So all of you here in the room will have a vote as well, the people's choice. And at the end, when you leave the room, you can note down who you are most inspired by. We also like to encourage you to engage via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. And our Twitter hashtag, do I see that? For today is #FallingWalls23, and you can tag @falling_walls and @science_academy. But now let's get started. Can I have, please, our first presenter? So please welcome our first presenter. Dr. Emma-Anne Karlsen from the University of Queensland, Fraser Institute. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you. Treating cancer can be a bit like trying to get into a house where the front door is locked. Conventional chemotherapy can be a bit like a bulldozer. Sure, you're going to get inside, but you're hurting a lot of other things in the process. Monoclonal antibody therapy is like a key to the lock. It offers targeted treatment, the key, that directly attaches to receptors on the cancer cell surface, the lock, to kill that cell alone. But haven't we all had a dodgy lock? It's the right key, but for some reason, that door won't open no matter how many times you jiggle it. Well, that's the case for a lot of our monoclonal antibodies, as only 15 to 30% of patients currently respond. And boy, these keys aren't cheap, as it's estimated that the average cost to Australia per year for non-responders is in excess of $355 million. So how can we predict who has a dodgy lock? Well, our lab has shown that patients who fail to internalize the receptors, so therefore have more receptors on the cancer cell surface in a particular pattern, respond better to therapy than those who don't. We demonstrated that if we inhibit a small molecule called dynamin, that we can inhibit clathrin-mediated endocytosis. And what this does is it serves two purposes. The first is to increase drug binding and loading onto the cancer cell surface. And the second is by holding it there for longer, it promotes clearance of the tumor by the patient's own immune system. Using this information, we found a locksmith. Prochlorperazine, or PCZ, is a medication that I already prescribe in the hospital for nausea and vomiting. What we've shown is that at high doses, PCZ can inhibit dynamin and therefore turn non-responders into responders. To prove this worked clinically, we did a safety trial where we looked at patients with head and neck cancer, and we found that highlighted in green, here you see a significant increase in receptor expression after the addition of PCZ. We saw that our combination had no adverse side effects, and to our delight, we even saw regression of metastatic disease that was previously refractory to even platinum chemotherapy. So where to from here? Well, we're currently extending this research into other cancers, and I'm recruiting to a clinical trial where we look at the combination of PCZ with trastuzumab, a medication that's used to treat HER2-positive breast cancer. We are breaking down the wall of monoclonal antibody resistance for the 70% of patients who currently don't respond to therapy. My favorite part is that this won't be through the development of a novel medication that will cost millions of dollars in R&D and a significant environmental impact. But rather, it will be through reaching into our own pharmacies and repurposing an already PBS-approved medication that costs under $20 a vial. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. And I'd now like to ask the panel for the first questions. You have your red sheets with question marks. And may I start with Michael? Microphone.
Many thanks. This was a great presentation. Are there certain types of cancer which you are rather see as your target for this change from responders to, or from non-responders to responders?
Absolutely. We found that patients whose monoclonal antibody therapy works mainly through ADCC, which is a way of clearing through the immune system, they respond best to this additional therapy, and that's in mainly trastuzumab for breast cancer, and also head and neck squamous cell carcinoma through cetuximab.
Lynn, for a second question.
Again, a terrific presentation. I wanted to ask about whether it would allow treatment to take place more in the home, or particularly in rural and remote sites, because it is such a problem for people with cancer to get to the site of therapy. Could this open up doors to allow a wider distribution and more effective and quicker treatment, because it would be to the people where they needed it, wherever they are in Australia or around the world?
I love that question. It's something that I feel so passionately about, especially in rural Queensland. We have people who sometimes travel 600 kilometers to get their chemotherapy. So this will hopefully help that transport be more meaningful. You know, the worst part is when you drive 600 kilometers or displaced by your family for a treatment that may not even work. That's heartbreaking, you know? Hopefully with this addition, we can at least make that travel and displacement worthwhile.
Let's thank Emma-Anne.
Thank you.
And while I asked to join us on stage, the next presenter is Sahand Karimi-Arpanahi. You also see that we have a counter for the presentation for the 3 minutes, and then a counter for the questions, which will be coming down. So please join us. Our next presenter is Sahand Karimi-Arpanahi from the University of Adelaide. Over to you.
Renewable energy is the cheapest source of electricity. So why is it taking so long to switch from coal and gas power plants to solar and wind farms? Well, it's because these renewable plants face so many challenges that the conventional ones did not. A big one, for example, is their reliance on sunshine and wind, which are not predictable, making renewable power just as uncertain. Imagine our electricity grid as a perfectly balanced seesaw. On one side, we have the generated electricity, and on the other, our energy demand. Maintaining this balance is crucial. But the tricky part is that it relies on accurate predictions of renewable power. So renewables that do not meet their predictions face significant financial penalties and make the grid unstable. To solve this challenge, many researchers worked on new forecast methods to improve the predictions of renewables. However, these models are still not accurate because they rely on an unpredictable factor, the weather. But what if we could decouple the unpredictable weather changes from renewable power? In my research, I've worked on a new method by adding a battery to a renewable plant to just do this. However, the big problem with this idea has always been the very high cost of batteries, which has basically made these projects unprofitable. So I first developed a new method to measure how predictable a renewable energy source is and how much a battery can improve that. Then I developed a new mathematical model based on these findings to determine the smallest battery that can make the renewable power predictable in an optimal way. Managing this battery in real time in a way that can achieve the same outcome of this mathematical model is, of course, really difficult. So I also developed a new algorithm that manages this battery in real time. To test them, I simulated the solution on 20 different wind and solar farms in Australia. The results show that not only this battery solution can improve the profitability of the project, but it can also decrease the unpredictability cost of renewables by more than 80%. If applied to all renewables in Australia, this can save us $50 million a year. To make this happen, I've started talking to investors and potential customers to commercialize this research and make renewables a more attractive investment. This will mean more renewable energy for the grid, less greenhouse gases for our planet, and cheaper, greener electricity for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahand. And over to the jury. I might start with Jagadish.
So do you see that there's a need for upgrading of the current grid itself? Because the grids have been designed from a one source to the multiple users, but now you got a multiple sources. How do you manage that one?
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, at the moment, our grid is definitely not fit for purpose, given that the future energy source will be solar and wind. So these solar and wind farms are now located in the locations that we didn't have transmission networks, so definitely our transmission network need to be reinforced. At the same time, in distribution networks, most of the houses are now have solar panels, batteries. Distribution networks may not be suitable, so we definitely need to, make investment on those aspects as well. Yes.
Thank you.
A second question from Lynn.
Really interesting, fascinating talk. Could you share with me how relevant this could be for the developing world, where perhaps there wouldn't be as well-developed structure already to take the electricity that you will be presenting to them?
Definitely, very good question. So I'm from Iran, which is a developing country as well. So I know the problem with the power grid in Iran as well. And actually, even in Iran, we are not integrating much solar and wind farms. One reason is that fossil fuel is cheap, unfortunately, there. So many power plants may not find that financially beneficial to go that way. But at the same time, managing the grid may not be as good compared to maybe a developed country here. So making the renewable power predictable in a way that the grid operation would be easier can certainly facilitate integrating more solar and wind farms to the grid.
Thank you, Sahand. And let's all thank Sahand. So we have a pretty rapid turnaround. And our next speaker, will be Alex Griffin from the Cerebral Palsy Alliance and the University of Sydney. Welcome, Alex. As you can see, The wall to fall is always on the slide, and now it's over to you to tell us about it.
Thank you. Imagine your brain as a massive network of roads with information travelling in cars or neurons, a type of brain cell, from one place to another. Now imagine there's been a car accident in this network blocking or damaging these roads. Cars can't travel through the affected area. In other words, the flow of information along pathways in our brain is disrupted, and the location of the disruption determines which functions of our body are affected. Cerebral palsy occurs when this disruption happens to areas of our brain controlling movement. It's the most common physical disability of childhood, but guess what? We can change the roads. We can change the pathways in the brain. Neuroplasticity operates a bit like a really impressive road maintenance crew. When we learn a new skill, a new road is built. By practicing this skill over time, this road gets faster and more efficient. But there's a catch. This can be costly in terms of time and energy. A lot of repetitions are needed, and this generally means a lot of fatigue. So what if we could boost neuroplasticity? What if, through fewer repetitions, we could get bigger improvements in movement? This is where a known safe treatment called TDCS, or transcranial direct current stimulation, comes in. TDCS is a form of non-invasive brain stimulation. It works by providing a boost to the brain during the practice of a desired movement. Now, our brains always have the capacity to change, but childhood represents a time where this capacity is heightened. We want to increase access for this innovative treatment to families by moving this treatment from the lab into the home. Members of our research team, based at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who are world leaders in paediatric TDCS, have started this process. So they've shown that families can correctly set up a mock TDCS device at home following remote supervision and instruction. They've also shown that remote delivery of TDCS at home is safe and feasible with a member of the research team in the home at the time. Now, we're ready for the next step, completely remote TDCS. And where is one of the most remote locations in the world where children live? Australia. So together, we're taking this technology further. We're breaking the wall of paediatric brain stimulation by showing for the first time that completely remote TDCS is safe and feasible for children. This has the potential to change the way we're delivering rehabilitation on an international scale, increasing access, reducing cost, and future-proofing this treatment in relation to the recent global pandemic. By providing a remote boost to the brain, we really can change the game. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you.
The jury, may I ask for questions? Yes? Angela, please.
A fascinating presentation. So I'm just wondering, is there a minimum amount of time per day that the child needs to wear this for it to have the effects that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the priorities for research in the field at the moment is working out the optimal dosage for this treatment. So at the moment in this safety feasibility study, we're looking at 20 minutes of the stimulation per day over a 5-day period. Once we move into larger efficacy studies, we can start to look at determining the optimal dosage. So that's a bit of a question mark at the moment.
Oh, Lynn, you again. No, sorry. Lynn, the second question, please.
Certainly something close to my heart. Close to my heart as a neuroscientist.
We know the brain is in compartments, so is it important where you place the device, and could you be doing harm rather than good? So having a professional there when the therapy is working, and I think it's great for only 20 minutes, would be marvellous for kids, but can you be really sure it's going to be safe in the hands just of a family?
That's a really good question, yes. So we are working with equipment that's been specifically designed for use in the remote setting. So what you mentioned in terms of the electrode placement is incredibly important. And we're using head straps that have specific electrode positions already built into them. So they can't be changed by families. So In the lab, we can certainly move electrodes around, but in the home, we're sending out 6 different sized head straps. They all have the same positioning of the anode and the cathode. And so we take families through the measurement procedure. We help them select the right size. We check that it's aligned well. So there's like an arrow in the center, and when we know it's set up well, we know we're targeting the right area. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's thank Alex. May I ask Sera Susan to the stage? So you see by now we have a nice, regular, beautiful rhythm of 3-minute presentation and 2 questions. So let's welcome our next presenter, Sera Susan Jacob. Please join us on stage. Sera is coming from the University of Queensland. Over to you.
When was the last time you had a warm curry with turmeric for dinner, an energy drink with guarana to help power through your workout, a smoothie made with berries and chia seeds to get your day started, or even a cheeky macadamia nut cookie as a sweet treat? These are all ingredients that were added to our global food system only about 15 to 20 years ago. But they aren't new or novel. In fact, they are older than the collective age of this room. Turmeric, native to Southeast Asia, was used as a traditional ingredient and medicine discovered through Ayurveda. Guarana was discovered as a quick source of energy by the Tupi people in the Amazon. Blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, cranberries, all discovered by and integral to the Great Plains Native Americans. And of course, I'm sure we all know where macadamias came from. With the pressing problem of food security, we also know that many of these indigenous groups, now with chronic and debilitating diseases, no longer consume any of these foods. So it is crucial, now more than ever, to find integrated and inclusive ways to do science. We need to establish evidence that takes into account all experiences, those lived by indigenous communities and those established through scientific protocols. And my solution to this problem is with wattle seeds. In my PhD, using wattle seeds, or Australia's native legumes, I have tried to join the dots with all the hands involved. I have had the privilege to learn and work with some incredible indigenous people from Alice Springs, and through their art, stories, and lived experiences, I have learned about the many, many uses and benefits of wattle seeds, and effectively linked them to scientific evidence across food science. Together with them, I have developed food products inspired by traditional use, sparking joy and reigniting the familiar comfort of traditional foods and connection to country, all the while creating pathways for long-lasting impact and economic empowerment. Today, I challenge you to broaden your perspective on what research really means. Because in order to truly achieve food sovereignty through science, we must acknowledge that knowledge is not just written about in articles, but danced, sung, and celebrated about, drawn and painted about, talked about and passed down to children, and shared openly and freely to the people with the right curiosity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sera. Surely there must be some good questions. Lynn, to start with.
Australia, and well done being out there in the community. Are you designing food for different age groups? Because, you know, kids, it's terribly important to get good nutrition early in life, and if we miss out on that, so can you see your wattle seeds and others being used at for the earliest stages of a child's growth and to take to school in their school lunch pack, for example?
Yeah, that's actually a very great question. So we know that chronic anemia is a problem in indigenous communities, and wattle seeds are a naturally really good source of iron. So we have developed products that have a really high concentration of wattle seeds in different forms. Then they're processed in different forms to improve the bioavailability of iron, and in products that are very school-friendly. So, yeah.
Jagadish.
And again, in terms of quantifying or transferring the knowledge which has been in the indigenous communities and then be able to bring it to the Western, the broader community, which is really dealing with the Western science. How do we really be able to really capture that one because of the fact that these are all passed through the songs or art and other things, it's not been written somewhere. So how do you think that we can be able to do that much better job than what we're able to do today?
So one of the ways that we are doing this is we have an Indigenous Advisory Board as part of the Australian Research Council Centre that I'm part of. So all the decisions that I make in my project go through them. So we know that it's culturally appropriate. The second way is all of the articles that I publish as part of my PhD has an Indigenous co-author. So that person will get to read everything that I write, and it has to be in a way that is culturally acceptable and respectable to what their knowledge transfer is. Yeah. So those are the two ways that we're currently looking at. And some of the future outcomes from my work would be to translate all of the work that I have done through my PhD into educational material that will go out into remote Indigenous schools, both in English and language, starting Aboriginal-owned businesses with these products that would operate on country, and of course, improving access of these products to communities so it's more equitable, affordable, and it contains ingredients that they are familiar with.
Thank you.
Let's thank Sera. Thank you. Our next presenter will be Andrew Mencel from the University of Adelaide.
Thank you.
Please join us. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you. Hi guys, before we start today, I just want to do a little exercise with you all. Can I ask you all to please stand up for me? You can take a seat back down. I don't want to be too mean today, I know it's hot. What you guys just did is what 1.8 million Australians with mobility limitations are unable to do. Unfortunately, these Australians, many of them you may know, are at a higher risk of developing a pressure injury. My name's Andrew Mencel, I'm a physiotherapist and an MBA graduate, and I'm here to break the wall of pressure injuries. So a pressure injury occurs when prolonged pressure is applied to the skin, leading to severe pain, discomfort, and even life-threatening infections. Unfortunately, this is all too common in aged care, with up to 25% of residents developing a pressure injury. This is often due to care staff being overworked and under-resourced and unable to physically reposition these high-risk residents every 2 hours as required. In terms of the long-term effects, it costs the Australian healthcare system over $9 billion annually. And therefore, our target market are non-mobile residents living in aged care facilities and aged care providers. Our solution is the Mossa cushion. Embedded into the cushion, pressure and thermal sensors will detect the weight distribution, how long a user's been sitting on the cushion, and the presence of existing pressure injuries. The inflatable cells will automatically adjust the pressure away from these high-risk areas, effectively eliminating the need for physical repositioning from a carer. Whilst alternative pressure cushions do exist, they fail to identify these high-risk areas. And that's what truly sets the Mossa cushion apart from its competitors. Not only can we identify these high-risk areas and use our cushion as a preventative strategy, but also in the management of existing pressure injuries. And I'll demonstrate how this would look like in the real world. So I have a pressure injury here. As you can see, that's because I've been using one of our competitors' pressure cushions, of course. When I sit on my new Mossa cushion here, the thermal sensors will detect the heat from the injury site, and the inflatable cells will automatically adjust the pressure away from this high-risk area. And that's shown on the left-hand side of this heat map. Oh, wow, it feels amazing. So we're currently working with mechanical and software engineers to help build an MVP and take our cushion to the next level. Thank you for listening, and hopefully I've taken the pressure off.
Thank you, Andrew, for such a great presentation.
Thank you.
Including your cushion, fantastic. So, thanks. Some questions. Andrew.
Andrew, do you see any sort of adjacent areas other than aged care, or have you identified other spaces where this might be relevant?
Yeah, great question. So this started originally in our MBA program, and I have a bit of history, or I work in aged care as a physio, so certainly it's something close to my heart to start with aged care, the aged care sector. But certainly if we did go into the community side, wheelchairs or any non-mobile kind of facilities that we can use, we'd be looking to apply as well for NDIS if we did go down that road. But certainly, community is definitely the next stage that we'd look to expand into. Thank you.
Michael?
Great presentation, and it's really a problem. How small can be the areas that you can really work from?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Currently, we've really looked at air pressure mattresses and how specific the target areas are for the whole body. At the moment, I know one of our engineers is probably watching this, and he's probably got more of the technical side of things, but certainly once we have our prototype built, we'd probably like to reform that. We're looking at anywhere between a diameter of maybe a 20-cent coin, 50-cent coin as well. But again, just depending on the technology that we have available. But we look like it would be pretty specific to certain areas on the body.
Great.
Thank you.
Let's thank Andrew.
Thank you.
We're already halfway through the presentations, but there's more to come, great ideas to come. Haven't we been inspired already? Now, our next speaker is Dr. Papagianis from Monash University. Over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We all know what dust is, but perhaps not how dangerous it can be. The recent massive increase in popularity of engineered stone benchtops in home renovations is a threat to the workforce. These stone benchtops are made of 98% silica, and it's the workers who are handling these stones that are in danger. Dangerous silica dust is generated when cutting into engineered stone or in other construction or mining work. Silica dust itself is 200 times smaller than a single grain of salt. Its size means that it bypasses the normal protective mechanisms in the lungs and lodges deep in the lungs to cause scarring and breathlessness in as few as 5 years. We now know that wearing protective equipment at work does not protect the worker from inhaling dangerous silica dust. The first case of silicosis from engineered stone in Australia was in 2015. But since then, we've seen more than 600 cases pop up in our country. That's 1 in 4 people who work with engineered stone. Silicosis is the biggest threat to lung health since the asbestos crisis. It is incurable. The average person is diagnosed at just 36 years old. They're meant to be in the prime of their life. Diagnosis requires lung function tests and x-rays, which means that you have to go to the hospital, see specialised doctors, and these tests can be invasive and time-consuming. At the point of diagnosis, it's already too late. The only option is a lung transplant, with one transplant doctor describing the silicotic lung as like pulling a brick out of the patient. We desperately need to break down the walls that prevent us from detecting silicosis early. What if there was a simple breath test that indicated your level of exposure to silica dust in the workplace? We've partnered with a company to analyse chemicals in the breath that indicate your level of risk for developing silicosis. These chemicals, or volatile organic compounds, are byproducts of our body's normal metabolic processes, and they're exhaled onto the breath. For the first time, our lab is identifying which of these chemicals on the breath can be used as biomarkers for early stages of silicosis lung disease. We envision this test is available on site before you start work in a traffic light system, whereby chemicals that light up red are high risk, amber is be cautious, and green is continue with normal workplace surveillance. This test is fast, cheap, and easy to use and will identify silicosis before decline in lung function. We are breaking down the walls to identify early breath biomarkers of dangerous dust at work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Paris. Questions, please. Lynn.
Learnt the story of asbestos and mesothelioma, so your talk is so relevant because we're going down the same path here. Do you think it's really important that not only do we work in the workforce, but we talk to TAFEs, for example, to see that the next generation of tradies who are coming through are more aware of this issue, and so when they reach the workforce, they're going to be more sympathetic to using your device and ensure that their co-workers do so also?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So this problem is twofold. One part of it is about protecting yourself in the workplace, but the more and more cases that we're seeing, the more we're realising that people are actually doing what's recommended in the workplace and still developing silicosis. So education about how to safely work with engineered stone is something that we're not really across, and maybe there is no way to work safely with this product. So it is partly about education and partly about whether or not we need to ban these hazardous materials as well.
Angela, thank you.
I'm just wondering, can you tell us about, is this problem a greater problem in Australia or similarly spread throughout the world?
Yeah, so this is a problem globally, especially in developing countries where they don't have great awareness about how to protect themselves against hazardous substances in the workplace. So this kind of test, this simple breath test on site, could be extended to many other occupations around the world. And so we do see a big reach with this product.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And please welcome our next presenter, Hemanshi Galaiya from the University of Queensland. Over to you.
Every morning, millions of students cross over into the past, conforming to centuries-old education practices. In Kenya, for example, 95% of schools continue to take a purely theory-based STEM approach. And this lack of practical engagement creates a disconnect between the classroom and the real world. By the age of 12, students perceive STEM as boring and uninspiring, turning away from these critical pathways. Ultimately, this reduces the global pool of talented people required to solve critical challenges in poverty, climate change, and food security. Investigating literature on STEM pedagogies and through interviews with students and educators, my research identified 3 primary causes for educational inequalities in countries like Kenya. First, STEM subjects are taught in isolation, presenting a broken link to its application. Second, overworked teachers reduce the pool of available active, proactive educators that are participating in reform. And lastly, economic barriers means classrooms are not prepared with up-to-date technology, leaving students unprepared for the future. So, in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal for Quality Education, I founded Young Stripes to reimagine STEM education by firstly leveraging input from education experts and academia and industry to craft holistic student-centric STEM curriculums. We then empower local youth to deliver our programs so that we can increase the pool of trainers participating in reform. To tackle the barriers in resources, we redirect funds generated from programs run in affluent schools to fund STEM outreach in low-income areas. And crucially, our frugal science activities ensure we're able to bridge learning gaps despite technological limitations. So far, we've already piloted our program in Kenya, impacting close to 1,500 students through critical partnerships, for example, with Tech Kids Africa and Google, where we empowered 200 students in computer science courses. For our efforts, we have been called Rising Impact Makers in Africa. But the challenge is still global. Today, even when our efforts are concentrated in the sub-Saharan African region, globally 820 million students continue to grapple with outdated education systems because the challenges in STEM education are global. Our conceptual model has showcased that science education can empower students by being practical-oriented, focusing on discussions that prepare them for the future. It has showcased that frugal science could spark the next engineer or astronaut from a low-income area. And most importantly, it has showcased that this challenge is solvable and its solution scalable. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemanshi. Over to questions, please. Jagadish?
It's an important problem, Hemanshi, we are trying to address. So do you think that the digital technologies will have a role to play in terms of being able to reach the remote parts of the world, to be able to really provide STEM education to reach them?
Yes and no. Digital technologies definitely ensure that we keep students up to date with what's happening in the real world. But when you look at remote areas, or even in countries like Kenya, where most schools don't even have access to electricity, even in big cities, you have to take the concepts of digital technologies and teach them in an offline manner. And more than digital technologies, I think it's frugal science activities, so that we can give the conceptual learning even when there's no technology available.
Thank you.
Lynn?
I think this is just splendid. Well done going to Kenya and starting to really test the water. What age group are you working with in particular? Because we know that the sooner we get to young people to encourage them, the better. But then again, many drop out. You use the age of 12 as an example. So do you see this program working across primary and senior schools, and you can modify it for each group as needed?
Absolutely. So we start as young as 4 years. And what happens is we have a concept. For example, if I'm teaching how to make slime, the 4-year-old learns that slime is about chemicals, mixing, making something fun. The same slime activity for a primary student is introducing them to the concepts of mixing ratios, the science of it. And then you can extend it again into secondary, where they learn about polymers. So we craft it educationally appropriate for each age group. And definitely, like you said, 12 is the age. So the sooner we get them, we can ensure that the numbers do not stagnate. Students continue to be excited and participate in STEM in their later life. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Hemanshi. And we're progressing to our next presenter, Peter Elango from RMIT University. Welcome, and the show is yours.
Preventable diseases, such as cardiovascular diseases, are the biggest killers of the Australian population, accounting to about 25% of Australian deaths every single year. About 40,000 Australians every single year fall victims to cardiovascular-related diseases. We're talking about one death every 12 minutes because of cardiac diseases. Oftentimes, heart attacks go unnoticed, and most of the heart attacks happen during the sleep cycle. When left unmitigated, and when things get adverse, the patient visits the hospital, the only prior data the healthcare personnel has is the patient's previous health checkup and the symptoms they're currently experiencing. Now, this is a problem on multiple levels. In my research, I aim to come to a solution to address this very specific problem. I have developed a novel variable electrocardiogram technology, also known as a variable ECG monitor. Now, commercially available ECG devices or machines that you see in the hospitals by the bedsides are bulky, weighs a few kilograms, has several electrodes, wires, and cables connecting the user to the device. My wearable electrocardiogram sensor can pitch and fit into the palm of your hands. It is compact and it is wearable. I make use of a novel dry electrode technology, where these electrodes have a thickness less than 1/10 the diameter of a human hair. And these electrodes are capable of picking the cardiac parameters in a very efficient way in the human body. Further, this device is enabled with wireless sensing capabilities, which helps in remote monitoring. And all of these remote monitoring of the cardiac parameters and the vitals of the user can be seen on a day-to-day basis using handheld gadgets by both the user and the medical practitioner. This greatly reduces the burden on the current healthcare system, thereby also enabling precision medicine and personalized healthcare. The applications of this device is quite widespread, ranging from aged care, neonatal care, athletic performance, and improving the overall health and well-being of everyday Australians. This device has been patented and is being licensed at the moment, and I look forward to seeing this device commercially available in the Australian market in the very near future. My dream is a world with zero preventable diseases. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Over to the jury. Julia.
Working, yeah. So very interesting presentation. I was actually wondering, because you're referring to Australia especially, do you have any insight into the research, how this looks in other countries, internationally? Is this a problem as well? And about the technologies, that's something that's also needed in other countries?
That's a very good question, thank you. Globally, we're looking at 37% of the population being affected by cardiac and cardiac-related diseases. So specific research has been done pertaining to the land, Australia. Major problems that we know with the data, so there's a twofold problem here. There's available data and data we don't know. With the available data, we can see most of the available data comes from developed countries. So going on that consensus, it's mostly US and the Australia. In terms of developing countries, we have India and Singapore and Malaysia, who's coming second and third in terms of people affected by cardiac-related diseases.
Michael? Sorry.
Great work and great to bring it to this stage. One question, is there any issues about battery lifetime? And the other thing is, a single-use device, or are you considering for developing countries to be used more often?
Yeah, it's a very meaningful question. So 2 questions there. So we're looking at 24 hours continuous monitoring. There's always an issue when it comes to wearable devices with respect to the battery. So we start by using a coin cell battery, which goes for 7 days continuously, and we're looking into energy harvesting devices now, which can help us, have continuous monitoring for several weeks, at least 3 to 4 weeks. So that's what we're looking at. And 24-hour monitoring is the target, yes.
Single use?
Oh, it is a single-use device, which can be worn for about a month. We're looking at 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. So our 9th presenter, I would like to ask to the stage, is Yulong Sun of the University of New South Wales. Over to you, Yulong.
Thank you for the introduction. Lubricant play a very important role in mechanical industry. However, sometimes when the pollution problem caused by some lubricating oil, there will be effect to like some industry production and also the sustainability. So in the past 10 years, my work is trying to break in the wall of the industry lubricant pollution. So let's start with a question. So what do you think, how many percentage of the energy has been used to overcome the friction? So the answer is 20%. At the same time, 15 to 40% of the budget is spent on the lubricant tasks. So the reduction of the friction will be maintain the machine life, will be increase the energy efficiency, also can improve the sustainability. But at the same time, we realize traditional lubricant, they are like mainly oil-based. And also at the same time, some machines we need to operate in the open air and the water. So the long-term immersion or the rainwash will be change the surface and lack of the stability for the friction reduction. So that means we have to apply for the chemical again and again on the surface to keep the property. But at the same time, it will also hamper the sustainability, also bring a lot of environmental problems. So my research in the past 10 years is trying to build a hydration lubrication system, and this system will only use water as the only lubricant to achieve very long-lasting and low-friction surfaces. So there are 3 stages in my research. So the first one, I use covalent bond to modify the hydrogen lubrication molecule on the surface. But the surface is very easy to be destroyed after a very long time operation. So I'm thinking, okay, now let's use some like dynamic strategy. We probably can achieve some self-healing properties. So then I use host-guide interaction to involve inside, and we achieving a very long time working and also increase the stability. And currently, I'm working on some multivalent technology and trying to using this technology to put a lot of the function into the surface, except for the lubrication properties. I think, except for the mechanical industry, we probably can use hydrogen lubrication in a lot of research areas, such as agriculture, like medical science, like a fishing industry. So I just want to say, let's only use water to break the wall of the lubricant pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Yulong. Over to you, Jerry. Jagadish.
Thank you for a nice presentation. And so in terms of using water, you'll be able to use that one with the mechanical equipment as well? Or yes. Otherwise you need to use some polymers, which can potentially lead to other contamination issues than the one which you're replacing?
Yes. So that depends on which kind of molecule you want to use. And also that depends on the interaction between the small molecule and the molecule you modify on the surface. So if, for example, if we want to achieve some oil-based lubricant, we can also use some structure that can forming like the van der Waals or the hydrophobic interaction. But in our case, we're normally using some ion dipole interaction to push the water with the molecule together to forming very stable water layers to convert the friction between the two layers to the water molecules. So we can achieve using different molecular designs. Yeah, thank you.
Lynn?
Presentation. You mentioned agriculture as a possible avenue to take your research. I wonder if you could give us some examples, because we know the world is facing a huge shortage of food by the year 2050. Do you see this working in agriculture and perhaps in aquaculture too?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, and luckily I'm doing an agriculture project in this moment. So now we are trying to using our structure to modify on some softer surface, like a rumen of the core, for example, because we need to deliver some sort of like chloroform into the rumen of the fall to reduce the Mencel production. So in this way, we can use this molecule to, it's very smooth into the rumen and they got reaction. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Let's thank Yulong.
Thank you.
And now I would like to welcome to the stage. That's all right. No worries. Let's welcome to the stage Ellie Treloar from the University of Adelaide. Over to you, Ellie.
All right. You're in hospital. You've woken up after a terrible night's sleep. You've been poked and prodded all night long. All of a sudden, the lights turn on and a group of unfamiliar faces enter the room. You have no idea what's happening and they're in and out in an instant. This is what we call the morning ward round, and it is one of the most important parts of patient care in hospital. Despite this, the ward round has remained largely unchanged for the last 200 years. The ward round is also where most errors occur, with up to 80% of these being deemed preventable. This is because hospitals are chaotic. Staff are interrupted and pulled in different directions, and there's always pressure to get to the next patient. The World Health Organization estimates that 1.3 million people die every year due to preventable error in the ward round. This costs, in Australia alone, over $4 billion annually. So how do we fix it? Well, medicine has taken concepts from aviation in the past to reduce preventable error in the operating room. The surgical safety checklist is estimated to reduce 4 million complications every year. I propose taking another concept from aviation, the sterile cockpit, to reduce preventable error outside of the operating room. In the sterile cockpit, any activity that is deemed non-essential to safe flight is prohibited. You can't interrupt the pilot, and the pilots themselves can't talk about anything that is extraneous to takeoff and landing. This revolutionized aviation, and it occurs on every single flight. So what is the sterile cockpit in the ward round? We are hoping to make every patient encounter a sterile zone. There are no distractions. There is 100% focus on the patient. Staff speak one at a time, and the plan is repeated back to everyone at the end. We're planning to change the safety culture in the ward round. This is a simple solution to a complex problem. It is achievable, it is low cost, and it will save lives. It has the possibility to impact every patient in every ward, in every country worldwide. For the hospital and the taxpayer, reducing error frees up beds, saving resources and money. For the clinical staff, it improves teaching and quality. It reduces repetition and saves time, and it reinforces best practice. And for the patient, they get the best care possible. So I'll leave you to consider this. If patients are like passengers in a plane, every day 4 A380s full of people are dying due to preventable error in hospitals. If this were true, would you still fly? Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Questions? Jury. Angela?
Beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
So I'm wondering, you can put such a plan in place, but how do we train the patient to comply with such a formula in their consultation, as far as what if a patient wants to have a chat with their clinician?
Yeah, fantastic question. So one of the biggest problems in the ward round is that it's not that the patient is doing anything wrong, but it is that there is so much going on. Sometimes there's 5, 10 people in the room and there's multiple conversations happening at once. It's completely okay if the patient wants to have a chat, but the issue is that there's not then another conversation happening parallel with the person who is documenting what's going on. That's one of the most important parts of the ward round, creating a blueprint for their stay. So it's nothing to do with what the patient wants, or if they want to have a chat and talk about the footy, that's fine. It's more about making a patient-centred zone, so we're not having multiple conversations at once where something can get missed. The patient's complaining of a certain pain or something like that. That's not missed in the documentation as well. Thank you.
Michael?
Many thanks. You're highlighting a very important component, but it comes also a little bit back to leadership of those ward rounds, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
This is one thing, and the other one is, of course, we have many electronic devices, whatever, we have to capture components, so you will fight against something which is has come over us, I would say.
Yes, look, my PhD and my research at the moment is looking at documentation specifically of the ward round. And we've found that a third of important, so the most important part of the discussion, a third of that isn't documented. So our real focus is how can we improve that, and that's the sterile cockpit, making it a patient-centred zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Wow, what a set of presentations. And this now concludes our presentation and question and answers. And what a wonderful job. Can I please have a round of applause for all 10 presenters? Hey, hey. I would like to ask the jury to head to the Becker room to deliberate and select the winners. Everyone else, please make your way to the Jäger room for refreshments. That's behind us. Please also remember to vote for the People's Choice on your way out. You have a form and you can, you put it in the box so we can count it. And please remember, just one vote which is really hard. Please return to the theatre at 4 o'clock for the announcement of the winners. And a reminder, food and drinks are not allowed here, so please help yourself in the Jäger room. For those who have joined us online, we will be back soon, but in the meantime, enjoy some fascinating science with the upcoming video entertainment. Thank you.
Can we change the world in 3 minutes? 3 young Australian researchers will try to do just that at the Falling Walls Lab finale in Berlin, an international forum for the next generation of outstanding thinkers and innovators. They will each present a 3-minute pitch alongside 100 other finalists from more than 55 labs across the globe.
It's very exciting, it's an amazing opportunity. I will be able to talk to different people, so potentially there might be a company that's interested in commercializing the platform.
Dr. Elena Schneider-Fuschig has developed a platform that measures drug concentrations in cystic fibrosis patients to evaluate and predict patient outcomes.
So patients currently only have life expectancies of about 40 years, which is not good enough just yet. So we still need to work on giving them longer life expectancies and helping them live better lives.
Kate Seacombe is investigating the gut microbiome's role in personalising cancer treatments to prevent intestinal toxicity, which can have a debilitating effect on a patient's quality of life.
Being able to predict gut toxicity from a range of cancer treatments is going to save money, it's going to save people's embarrassment, save pain, just really be able to increase people's quality of life during cancer treatment.
Rhys Piri has developed a chemical recycling process to take waste glass, which is currently going to landfill, and turn it into everyday products like fertilisers, detergents, and even toothpaste.
One of the things I like to say is we don't have a waste problem, we have a lack of incentive to recycle. So if we can increase the value of the waste products that we're trying to recycle, then it provides that incentive to actually use it in useful products.
From the side effects of medical treatments to a global waste problem, which of these walls will fall next?
The Australian Academy of Science, because questions need answers.
For stargazers, this is the ultimate light show. Auroras are normally only seen in polar latitudes, which is why they're often labelled the Northern and Southern Lights. But this photo was taken in the central New South Wales city of Dubbo. Auroras happen when charged particles from the sun interact with Earth's magnetic field. The Southern Lights, or Aurora Australis, are usually photographed from Antarctica or parts of Tasmania. The dancing lights are being spotted over a greater area right now because the solar cycle is nearing its peak. This is a really special time, says Carly Noon from the Australian National University. We're seeing a lot of solar flares and a lot of really high energy wind coming from the sun. The aurora, seen across an unusually large part of southern Australia, was likely caused by a blast of charged plasma from the sun's outer layers, known as a coronal mass ejection. CMEs travel slower than solar flares and often cause particularly beautiful auroras. But if you missed that one, experts say the best time to see Aurora Australis is typically during winter months, from places with little interference from big city lights.
Can love be explained by science? The University of Queensland's Dr. Loic Yengo says our genome can offer some clues.
Just by looking at genetic variants in the population, I can tell whether in a given population people tend to select their partners based on similarities, on intelligence or susceptibility to diseases.
Dr. Yengo studies genetic variants that influence our character traits. He's identified a correlation between specific variants and couples. His work suggests we tend to choose partners with similar traits to our own, and this could have an impact on future generations.
If people in a population select their spouses on, say, the susceptibility to a disease like schizophrenia, that will imply that over generations that the prevalence of that disease will continue to increase.
Dr. Yengo is a statistical geneticist, a line of work that has been dramatically enhanced by the technological breakthrough of genetic sequencing.
And what that means for me as a researcher is that we can now actually observe differences in the DNA sequence of individuals and try to connect those differences with the traits that we observe.
So, the next time you think it's a match made in heaven, perhaps it's actually been determined by your DNA.
The Australian Academy of Science, because questions need answers.
The war in Ukraine has had a devastating impact on the country's people.
We have 9 million displaced people within the country. We have 5 million displaced who are outside of the country.
That includes many scientists working on everything from medical research to the future of space exploration.
So the impact is huge. Imagine you out there, working in a lab, and all of a sudden you have to give up everything and move out.
Thanks to an $800,000 donation from the not-for-profit Breakthrough Prize Foundation, the Australian Academy of Science is now extending a helping hand to Ukrainian scientists.
This opportunity allows Ukrainians who are impacted to collaborate with Australia so that their research effort can continue.
The initiative will sponsor visits to Australia by Ukrainian researchers and make it easy to send data and samples to Australian research facilities with the results returned to Ukraine.
That is really important so that the research capability that's required to help rebuild their nation in the fullness of time is there and is not depleted over the course of the war.
To rebuild Ukraine, we'll need support of the world, and I think these connections which will be built as a result of the program will help us better help Ukraine in the future.
For more information, head to science.org.au/Ukraine research.
For many animals, their sex is determined by their genetics. But researchers have found that the sex of some species at birth is determined by their environment.
They do it by temperature, and we've always wondered, how does that work?
Distinguished Professor Jenny Graves and collaborators at the University of Canberra have spent the last 2 decades studying this phenomenon in Australian dragon lizards. The lizard's sex is determined by sex chromosomes. When the eggs are incubated between 22 degrees Celsius and 32 degrees Celsius, the usual temperature range in the wild, ZZ eggs hatch as males and ZW eggs hatch as females. But when the temperatures rose above 34 degrees Celsius, the team noticed something strange.
Amazingly, what we found is at the higher temperature, the ZZ eggs, which should have turned into males, they turned into females. So they hatch as females, and amazingly, they're fertile.
Because these sex-reversed females can successfully mate with males, it has wiped out the female W chromosome.
So we've changed the whole sex-determining system. We've shifted it from genetic sex to environmental sex in 1 generation.
Temperature also drives sex determination in other reptiles such as alligators and sea turtles. It's a system that could have huge implications as the Earth's climate warms.
If global climate change keeps on getting hotter, we're going to have all-female lizards. We have all-female turtles and all-male alligators. Not going to work very well.
Scientists are now looking at whether different species could adapt to rising temperatures and avoid the disappearance of one sex.
Microplastics are a byproduct of the world's ever-growing plastic pollution problem. Produced by the breakdown of larger plastics, microplastics are small and hard to see and have gradually spread everywhere, even in the air we breathe. Now, researchers have found for the first time that these airborne microplastics may have a direct impact on climate change. Modelling suggests they play a role in both cooling and warming the Earth's atmosphere. Lead author Dr. Laura Revell says airborne microplastics are efficient at scattering sunlight, which implies a cooling effect on climate. However, they can also absorb radiation emitted by the Earth, meaning that they contribute in a very small way to the greenhouse effect. And these impacts on climate change are expected to become more significant as microplastic pollution increases in the future. About 5 billion tonnes of plastic worldwide have already gone to landfill or the natural environment, and this figure is expected to double in the next 3 decades. That would mean a lot more microplastics circulating in the air and present in the Earth's atmosphere for many years to come. Dr. Revell points out that if the global average concentration of airborne microplastics increases to values already seen in some megacities, then their effect on climate will be significant and potentially similar in size to other atmospheric aerosols routinely included in climate models. More research will be conducted to determine the full extent of the impact of microplastic pollution on climate change.
The Australian Academy of Science, because questions need answers.
The scientists say this probably means they are dealing with some new deadly sexually transmitted disease.
It's been 40 years since the first description of AIDS-related illnesses. We still don't have a cure or even a vaccine, but experts in the field say that doesn't tell the full story.
40 years seems a very long time. However, the progress in HIV has been extraordinary. I mean, in many ways, it's to me the biggest and most important scientific advance in the last century, because we developed a way of managing a virus that had a universal death sentence and make it a completely manageable chronic illness, all through science and the availability of antiviral drugs.
HIV is a virus that gradually destroys cells used by the body to fight off disease. It can severely damage your immune system, making it much easier to develop diseases such as tuberculosis and some cancers. The most advanced stage of HIV is known as AIDS.
Even in Australia, about 1 in 5 people diagnosed with HIV are diagnosed so late their immune function has deteriorated to a point where they have AIDS.
But overall, new cases of HIV in Australia have halved over the last decade. In fact, Sydney is on track to become the first place in the world to end community transmission of HIV by 2025.
It's time to make history.
Effective elimination is defined as a 90% reduction in new cases over a decade. The big improvement is largely due to high testing rates and preventative measures taken by gay and bisexual communities. But infection rates in the heterosexual population haven't fallen as sharply. The Kirby Institute's Professor Rebecca Guy says the data shows why regular sexual health checkups are critical.
The test is like the gateway to a whole range of things that are important for a person. So you think about HIV, if you have a test and you find out it's positive, you can start treatment straight away and you can live the same longevity of life as everyone else and remain healthy.
While accessing an HIV test is relatively simple in Australia, the same can't be said for many places in the world.
People at risk of HIV, men who have sex with men, for example, there are still countries that criminalise that activity. And so how can you get a public health message out if the activity is considered criminal?
Even where it's not illegal, the stigma around HIV can sometimes drive down testing rates. That's one reason the Kirby has led the push for more screening options, including self-testing kits for people to use at home.
They're not quite as accurate as a lab test, but I guess the way I always think about it is having a test, even if it's less accurate, is better than no test at all.
Professor Sharon Lewin is a Fellow of the Australian Academy of Science and President of the International AIDS Society. As head of the Doherty Institute, she played a key role in fighting COVID-19, a virus that we managed to have vaccines for within 12 months. So why haven't we been able to do the same with HIV?
Well, HIV is a very different virus to COVID or influenza, which are viruses that can be completely cleared from the body. HIV is unable to be cleared from the body, and that's because it's a virus, part of a family, that's able to become part of a person's DNA.
And that happens within hours of a person becoming infected. Treatments allow the immune system to recover and can even stop the virus from being passed on. But the virus doesn't disappear. It's just hiding and will re-emerge if treatment stops. Professor Lewin has dedicated her career to understanding this phenomenon, known as HIV latency.
I've been on the hunt for understanding where the virus hides, how to mimic latency in laboratory models, and ways to coax it out of hiding.
While we don't yet have a vaccine, we do have access to a medicine that can help prevent HIV, known as PrEP. If taken correctly, the daily tablet can lower the risk of infection by 99%.
In Australia, we have a public health system that makes medicine free, essentially. We have a fantastically mobilised, vocal and articulate gay community that have done a lot of the education around accessing PrEP, and our uptake of PrEP is one of the highest in the world.
PrEP doesn't offer protection from other sexually transmitted infections, so doctors recommend the use of condoms. Professor Lewin says PrEP is just one of many advances in HIV research that goes to show the power of science. She believes it's only a matter of time before HIV is cured once and for all.
It's become a very important, high priority area of research because we now have treatment, we now have widespread access to treatment. Treatment's relatively simple. The next big challenge is finding a cure.
Taking medicine in the future could be as simple as eating a salad.
The example that we're actually doing at the moment is to have a multiple sclerosis drug in tomatoes so that people with chronic multiple sclerosis could maybe have their Greek salad and have some level of medical protection from the disease.
These drugs are based on molecules known as peptides. They are smaller than proteins and carry out important biological functions such as regulating other molecules, and some even act as hormones. Several peptides have pharmaceutical potential, including as potent painkillers. But because most break down if they're taken by mouth, Professor David Craik and his colleagues have engineered them into more stable circular peptides called cyclotides. Cyclotides are naturally found in some plants, so Professor Craik's team can embed them into edible plants such as tomatoes.
One of the issues with current painkillers is that often they don't work, and then we also know with opioids there are horrible addiction problems in the so-called opioid crisis. This is a different class of molecule that doesn't have those addictive effects.
Professor Craik says the potential applications extend beyond chronic pain and disease to areas including agriculture.
We could be creating a new biofarming industry in Australia where farmers could be, rather than growing a crop that might be worth $100 a tonne, it could be worth $100,000 a tonne by producing a high-value medicine in those plants.
The innovation isn't far from becoming reality, with the first crops potentially commercialised in the next few years.
Obviously there's lots of regulatory and social and ethical issues that we would need to address in doing this, but I think it does open up a new world for combining agriculture and medicine and delivering medicines in a novel way.
The red imported fire ant is one of the world's worst invasive species. When they swarm in large numbers, they can kill much bigger animals through their painful sting. But fire ants are opportunistic feeders, with everything from crops to beehives to livestock known to fall victim.
Red imported fire ants are a super pest. So if this super pest is allowed to spread uncontrollably, we would see a real impact in Australia.
Red imported fire ants were first detected at a port in Brisbane in 2001. Researchers at the Centre of Excellence for Biosecurity Risk Analysis say the pest has the potential to drive some plant and animal species to extinction. The key to stopping that from happening is to detect ant colonies as quickly as possible.
The first option is to send out a ground crew and they try to visually detect nests. The second option is to use odour detection dogs. They are really good with sniffing out those immature fire ant nests. And the third option is to use cameras that you mount on a helicopter and they take images that you can later process in the lab, and any fire ant nests might show up as a yellow spot on your image.
The red imported fire ant is just one of many threats on the radar of Cerebral's researchers.
The modelling that we've done here at Cerebral is one of a kind, doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. We're the only lab really that is modelling more than one pest or disease in the landscape at a particular time period, and that significantly increases the complexity of the modelling task.
But it's worth the effort. Biosecurity safeguards our way of life and our bottom line. For every dollar invested, the average return is estimated at $30.
What you care about is not the risk ranking when you're looking at rates of return, but risk reduction. And that's something like what a rate of return measures. It's measuring if I spend $1, I can avoid $30 in damages.
Research shows the potential damage to our economy would be around $672 billion over 50 years if biosecurity didn't exist. $672 billion. Industries like agriculture, forestry, fisheries and tourism would all take severe hits, as would Australia's unique ecosystem.
That's why we have a biosecurity system in place, because we want to continue to enjoy a natural environment. We want to have clean, green, healthy food, free of pesticides, and we want to have a really strong and productive economy. And having a really strong and vibrant biosecurity system ensures that all of those things can continue to happen.
These two scientists have something they need you to hear about the world's oceans.
My name's Matthew England. I'm a professor of ocean and climate dynamics at the University of New South Wales. I study how the oceans respond to climate variations and climate change.
My name is Adele Morrison. I study oceanography at the Australian National University in Canberra.
At the centre of their work is how water moves around the planet. Surface currents are powered by wind patterns, but deep underwater currents are driven by different layers of density in a process known as overturning circulation.
The ocean plays a big role in global climate by moving heat and carbon and also nutrients around, which affects ecosystems in the ocean. Changes that happen in one small location, like say near Antarctica, can then have a global influence because those waters move all throughout the whole planet.
And it's the Antarctic overturning circulation that has these scientists worried. They're two of the authors of a landmark study published in Nature that makes a dire projection closely related to the melting of the ice caps.
And what we see in that simulation is that the meltwater rate that we expect to play out over the next few decades is enough to slow down that overturning at a very dramatic rate, about 40% reduction by 2050.
Meltwater is a clear consequence of climate change. As ice caps melt, huge amounts of fresh water enter the oceans. The resulting reduction in salinity makes the water much less dense, meaning it doesn't sink with the same force.
So the dense water is important because it's a major driving factor in the global overturning circulation, which is this conveyor belt of waters that move around the whole ocean. And so this formation of dense water pushes that water down into the abyss, and then throughout the rest of the global ocean that moves up again in different places around the globe.
A slowdown in the overturning, particularly by 40%, would have a profound impact on marine ecosystems.
The thing about the oceans is that all of the marine life that we have at the surface, when it dies off, it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. So there's a lot of nutrient-rich water in the ocean abyss. If we slow down the overturning circulation that brings that very bottom water back up to the surface, we cut off a way that nutrients get back to the surface to regenerate marine life.
Their projection is based on advanced modelling that doesn't just factor in meltwater, but captures key regions of Antarctica with unprecedented skill.
And this is particularly important around Antarctica because there's a lot of small-scale processes that are important for this dense water formation.
A slowdown of the North Atlantic overturning circulation has already been documented. But this latest study shows that overturning in the Antarctic region could decelerate at twice the rate.
I should also say there's actually evidence in the ocean abyss that the mechanism we've described is already playing out. There's been significant warming of the ocean abyss, and that's exactly what our model projections show, that as the ice melt slows the overturning circulation down, you do get a warming of the ocean abyss. And if anything, our models are a bit behind where the observations are already tracking. So all the evidence we have suggests that we will have a slowdown of this overturning circulation in the next couple of decades.
These are fish oil tablets, right? Well, not quite. In fact, no fish were used in the making of these tablets.
This is a vegetarian source of fish oils.
But the pills contain the exact same omega-3 that's found in fish. So how is this possible? Well, CSIRO's Dr. Surinder Singh managed to modify the common canola plant to produce omega-3 oils.
Because of the health benefits of fish and the fish oils, the demand for these is really escalating. This is basically becoming a problem of how much fish there is out there in the oceans. If we can create a oilseed crop that can then be cropped across the world, this can provide an alternative source of these omega-3 oils.
And it's also less risky for our health because the plant-based omega-3 isn't impacted by heavy metal contaminants found in some areas of the world's oceans.
These types of omega-3 oils coming up from the canola crop will be totally pure.
So there you have it. Fish oil without the fish.
The Australian Academy of Science. Because questions need answers.
Are you a woman working in STEM and keen for more career opportunities? Well, if so, join me in signing up for Australia's most comprehensive Women in STEM database right now. Your information will be available to thousands of organisations keen to provide connections and visibility for women in STEM. Potential opportunities include conference panels, board positions, and event hosting. Developed by the Australian Academy of Science, the STEM Women Database is a platform to promote your talents. It's free, easy to use, and it saves time. This is a valuable resource for women working in STEM to showcase their talents and also for organisations who want to create new opportunities. So for more information, go to stemwomen.org.au.
Not a bad view, right? But let's pull back a little. Some things we can only see from space. The remarkable images we get from satellites enable us to keep track of everything from pollution to cyclones. That makes them a critical tool for keeping Australians safe. But there's something that may surprise you about these eyes in the sky.
None of those satellites are owned by Australia. If they break, if those countries or companies decide not to let us have access to them, we lose our weather forecasting capability, our ability to predict and respond to natural disasters like cyclones, floods and fires.
Professor Stuart Finn knows a lot about satellites. He uses them to map and monitor the health of our waterways, such as creeks, rivers, and lakes. The satellites are equipped with sensors that measure reflected sunlight.
And the amount of reflected sunlight coming back to the satellites is controlled by what's in the water, so organic matter or sediments.
Professor Finn is one of the main drivers of AquaWatch Australia. The joint project of CSIRO and the SmartSat CRC would see a network of satellites and ground sensors delivering data on water quality from right across the country. Vital information not just for agriculture and conservation, but for anyone who drinks from a tap.
Space is now more accessible. We can have small and large private companies building and launching systems that can monitor the environment, and the AquaWatch mission will be a way for us to build Australian capabilities to do that.
AquaWatch is just one example of how Australia could benefit from strong investment in space science research and development. That's why the Australian Academy of Science has released a 10-year plan for space science, calling on the federal government to prioritise innovation while protecting our sovereign interests.
Space science is one of the most rapidly growing, highly diverse areas that needs new people in it.
People such as Imogen Ray, an Australian who moved to New Zealand last year to work for a commercial space firm.
One of the most exciting things about space and space science to me is the amazing technologies and applications that we can create to really improve life here on Earth.
She was on the working group that helped write the Academy's decadal plan.
One of the critical foundational elements of our plan is workforce development.
It's highly diverse. It's everything from sort of designing and building instruments to designing and building satellites to using that information for looking at Earth resource monitoring. It's a growth industry, and we need Australians to contribute to it.
That takes focus and investment. But without it, Australia may well be left in the dark.
breathtaking,
inspiring,
exhilarating,
unique.
You are all winners here today in Berlin.
Very energized and excited.
It's such fun. There is dynamism and energy and enthusiasm and great innovation.
We listen here to 3-minute presentations from people from all over the world.
members have 0 to 5 points to give.
We have the winners of the labs from around the world, so we're dealing with the creme de la creme. And it's very difficult to pitch them against each other and figure out.
I want to talk to you about rhythm, heart rhythm.
How will you feel if you can breathe freely?
The power of developing software lies in the hands of just 1% of all people.
I don't think there's a better networking or learning opportunity that I've ever been a part of.
You get to meet people from all around the world, from very different backgrounds, so the inputs that you can get are massive.
Despite the fact that I'm so well traveled, I still met people here from nationalities that I have never met before in my life.
The biggest highlight is delivering a speech in front of 200 plus people. Another one is learning about research opportunities in Germany.
I will never forget these moments. I'm enjoying myself so much. I'm so grateful to be here. It seems like a great opportunity and it's unforgettable.
It's not only making the walls full, but it's changing lives for the better, and I absolutely love that. It's nothing better.
Well, welcome back from the break. I hope you're all feeling refreshed and excited to hear the jury's decision shortly. So my name is Frances Saparich, and I'm the Academy's Foreign Secretary. Since the establishment of the Academy in 1950, international scientific engagement has been a key area of Academy focus. As you might imagine, as Foreign Secretary, I get to travel a lot, and I've been to at least 7 countries this year, and next month I'm going to Malaysia and then to Italy. So it's tough, but you know, when you're 5'1", you're built for economy travel. There are several areas of focus for the Academy's international engagement, but I'll just highlight 3 today. The first is assisting the Australian Government to deliver its international science activities and advocating for a strategic and comprehensive international science engagement program. I'd like to draw your attention to an upcoming event, the Academy's 2023 Symposium on the topic of international collaborations in a contested world. Please follow the QR code there. So that will be happening in November. The second is our membership of the International Science Council, or ISC, the Inter-Academy Partnership, or IAP, and numerous international scientific unions which foster and strengthen relationships between Australian scientists, international bodies, and other academies. The Academy nominates many Australian scientists to leadership roles within these international bodies. For example, Professor Cheryl Praeger, former Foreign Secretary of the Academy, has chaired the Special Committee for Women in Science and Engineering, or WISE, of the Association of Academies and Societies of Sciences in Asia. And you have to learn all these acronyms. I'm still struggling with them. I'm on the IAP Advisory Committee, and I'm a member of the Science Board of the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, or IUPAC, and President-elect of the Division 1, which is Physical and Biophysical Chemistry. These are just 2 examples that highlight the leading role of Australian women in our international scientific engagement. Another example is the Academy's role in providing science leadership in the Asia-Pacific region, recently enhanced through the establishment of the ISC's Asia-Pacific Regional Focal Point within the Academy. The government's investment in this area will enable us to engage in strategic scientific diplomacy in our region. We expect these activities to enhance the opportunities for Australian scientists to engage in international collaborations and benefit from a stronger focus on science in our region. And finally, Falling Walls is a great example of one of our international programs that facilitates international engagement for early career researchers. When the winners from today's event arrive in Berlin, they will get to experience the German research context, network with leaders from a broad cross-section of society, including academia, business, and politics, and exchange ideas with other outstanding talents and innovative thinkers across disciplines and borders. We will now hear from event partners, Nishant Shandilya from Euraxis, followed by Andrew Woodland from Zeiss, who will help make this event possible. So Nishant, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Francis. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first time physically presenting in front of all of you. We have been involved with Falling Walls since 2020, when Euraxis started our operations in Australia and New Zealand. So it's good to finally be here. As much as of it is a cliche, all of you who have become a finalist are already worthy of being a winner already. So a big congratulations from our end. I'm Nishant Sandile. I'm the regional coordinator for Euraxis Australia and New Zealand. Euraxis is an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and seeks to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. So we try to provide help to researchers as well as research organizations in enhancing their networking capabilities, helping them with connections between a particular country and Europe. So I think if you are interested in that domain, if you want to understand what sort of grants, what sort of fellowships are there for researchers, whether you are an early career researcher or a senior researcher, do get in touch with us. And of course, you will be hearing quite a lot about what we provide in terms of activities, especially on Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe, very quickly, is the largest research and innovation framework program in the world. And we try to aware people what sort of opportunities there are in terms of Australian institutions and individuals getting access to it. In terms of Falling Walls itself, we decided on a long-term partnership with the Australian Academy and the German Embassy, because what Falling Walls theme is, it's very similar to what Euraxis is. It's about removing barriers or breaking down barriers. So we have been running the Sydney the labs for Falling Walls, and we are very happy to be a part of the finale. As a gesture from our end, we have been providing a high-level science and communication mentoring program to the winners. So the three of you who will be representing Australia in Berlin will receive this training from our end before you travel, so that you polish out the sort of things that you might want to polish on. And yeah, I think I'm aware that you are rearing to hear about the results, so I'll not keep you long. And I'll always say that please follow on your dreams, try to keep being curious, and keep on asking questions. I'm sure you'll get more answers to it. And thank you very much for listening, and all the best for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant. And now we'll hear from Andrew and Zeiss. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Andrew Woodland, and I'm from Carl Zeiss. Why is Zeiss sponsoring an event such as this? I think I take you back a little while, back to 1846, actually, when Zeiss was formed by Carl Zeiss. He was starting to look at the initial microscopes and developing technology around that, and with his friend and confidant, Ernst Abbe, they built an amazing company. We're now past our 175th years of anniversary, so we've been going a long time, and currently we're active in sort of four major areas: medical technology, that's ophthalmology devices, microsurgery devices, the industrial quality devices as well, in sort of metrology solutions, coordinate measurement machines, X-ray metrology, many different engineering solutions to help customers, to help other industries out in improving their own industries. The vision care industry as well, we're very big in as well. Ophthalmic lenses, these things here, we not only design the lenses, we design the materials, we do the chemistry, we do the physics for all of those. Camera optics as well, you'll have seen as well, and also things like semiconductor technology as well, the manufacturing thereof, and including a methodology called extreme UV lithography, which I'll touch on in a moment. A few stats about us. We're about an €8.5 billion company per year. We have more than 42,000 employees around the world. Interestingly, and I think my German friends will understand this, back in 1889, Zeiss, when Carl Zeiss passed away, Ernst Abbe created, with the German government, a foundation for Zeiss, which means we're not a public company. We have no shareholders. We have no dividends to give back to shareholders. So we're essentially a self-funded organisation, which means one of our aims is to reinvest something like 12-13% of our revenues annually back into research of our own, back into supporting other companies, other ideas, other startups to grow their ideas, and where we can utilise our broad capabilities around the world to help those grow forward. And I think I'll come back to the UV lithography that I mentioned earlier. We had, I think, a project running for more than 10 years, and it was multi-billions of dollars of research finance each year for more than 10 years in order to get to a point where we could create extreme UV lithography. And this is all about how many circuits can you get per square millimetre onto your silicon chip. The team cracked that solution after about 10 years. You can imagine in a public company with shareholders saying, no, throw this, pack this in, stop it, it's not going to work. But we got there, and now something like 95% of the world's semiconductors are made using Zeiss technology. And I think that's the power of research and the power of what can be done if you apply your ideas across many different areas and take a broad input. And I think that's what we've heard today from our speakers today. A broad range of topics, all with an interesting idea, a kernel there to grow and to build. And we always say to our colleagues, look for adjacencies. How can we grow this sideways as well as forwards? Can it be a bigger picture? Can it be applied to a different field? And I think that's very much the way we try to look at things, sideways as well as just the narrow forward look. So I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to listen to the talks today. As I said, representing Zeiss, we are very proud to be a partner of this Falling Walls venture, being a German company as well. It's a very natural fit from that perspective. And I'd just like to congratulate all of the presenters this year for their contributions. We enjoyed them all. It's a very difficult process we've just been through to identify the winners. I think you're all winners in your own right, and please, if you don't get your name called out today, keep working at it, keep growing, keep looking sideways at other ideas, and I wish you all the best in your future work. So thank you.
Thank you, Nishant, for showing us a little bit what Europe is doing and the great opportunities that are there and how you can help us, Australia, to be involved with Europe. Thank you, Andrew, for letting us look a little bit behind the curtain of such a great company, and again, your big vision, and thank you for your support, both of you. Now, unfortunately, a representative from the DAAD, Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, that's easy for me, could not be here today. However, they asked us to share this message behind the DAAD now. And I read it out. They put it in fine print in the bottom, isn't it? The DAAD is the world's largest funding organization for academic exchange with an office in Sydney. So try to suss them out. They might be able to help you if they are so large, right? Thank you, DAAD. So we thank them, we thank all of our event partners. And actually, you see our event partners here for Australia in the top line, and then below, you see some of the key partners for the event in Berlin. We thank them for their support, and we look forward to continuing our relationship. This is not going to be the last Falling Walls Lab. But now, may I invite Professor Jagadish and Julia Kaute from the German Embassy to present the certificates of participation to each of the 10 presenters. Jagadish and Julia, we thought the best place might be over there.
Sure.
And we have a photographer lined up for you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
So now I will read out. They have the documents? Yep, okay. So I'll read out the name of the presenters, and could each one of you please make their way towards Jagadish and Julia, and please pause for a photo when you do. So we start in the same order. Emma-Anne Karlsen, please. And we'll follow with Sahand Karimi-Arpanahi. And we have Alex Griffin. This is all there to build up the tension, you know. Please, Sera Susan Jacob, come forward. And if we don't do it now, everybody will be at drinks, so we have to do this. Andrew Mencel. Followed by Papagianis. And Hemanshi Galaiya. Peter Elango. And you know, social media, we need photos, right? Yulong Sun, please come and receive your certificate. and Ellie Treloar. Now this is a big room. We can have a bit more applause for all of 10 of them. Hey! You all will go far. You all will find people supporting your idea. But 3 of you will go to Berlin and convince an international audience. Jagadish, would you like to come over here to announce both of you, Jagadish and Julia, to announce the winners? You want to do that from here, Jagadish, and then present it over there? Or
Okay, that's fine.
It's just about the microphone.
Yeah, okay, sure, that's fine. Okay, so we'll do the, come on in. We'll do it together. So the people's, first and foremost, I would like to congratulate all of you, those who have participated in today's event, and then it's been a fantastic presentations, and then the jury really felt it's very difficult to choose the 3 out of those outstanding 10 presentations. So that's why I would like to say that congratulations, all of you have made it, and you should really feel proud of what you've achieved and then what you're going to achieve as well. And you've got a bright future ahead of you. And with that, so the People's Choice Award, called Audience Award, goes to Dr. Emma-Anne Karlsen. That's good. It's not a bad thing. You know. My step counter is counting my steps, which is a good thing. You know. Yeah. So the 3rd place winner is Hemanshi Galaiya for inequitable education. Second place winner is Alex Griffin, Paediatric Brain Stimulation. First place winner is Dr. Emma-Anne Karlsen for cancer therapy.
Thank you for making this hard choice. Congratulations to the 3 winners, to Team Australia that will go to Berlin. And very well done for everybody. Now, could I ask Francis to come back and close the event? Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Hans, and congratulations to all our winners today and all our presenters. I wish you all the best for the Falling Walls Lab Global Finale in Berlin in November. On behalf of the Academy, I would like to thank the jury members for volunteering their time to judge today's presentations. As I call your name, could you please come to the stage? So first of all, we'll ask our President, Professor Jagadish, President of the Australian Academy of Science and Jury Chair, Professor Lynn Beasley, Secretary Education and Public Awareness, Australian Academy of Science, Julia Carte, Science Counsellor of the Federal Republic of Germany to Canberra, Associate Professor Angela Laird, EMCR Forum, Co-Deputy Chair, and Professor Dr. Michael Scheutz, Director, Jamison Trauma Institute, and Andrew Woodland of SAIS. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause for all our jury members. Thank you. You have to stay for the photo.
Okay.
Yeah. I would also like to thank our event partners and sponsors once more for making Falling Labs possible. My thanks also to you, Hans, for emceeing today's event and for being a driving force. Hans has been a driving force for Falling Walls Lab over many years now. And finally, thank you for being part of the audience and listening to the wonderful presentations. I would like to invite you to join the jury and the presenters in the Jaeger room for drinks and canapes. But before you leave the theatre, I want you all to come on stage. So hands up on the stage, show them how it's done. I want everybody to come up. We're going to try and take a picture. Maybe we have to have some of us on stage and some of us in front. Yeah. He's done this before. Yeah. So we're going to have a group photo.
It's a bit of crowd management.
Yeah.
So just in front of here, we have a few there.
Okay, everybody down the front.
Yep.
You too, Lynn. Yeah. She's been organising this.
A few are here.
Yeah.
All the staff also.
A few are here. Some of the presenters come up.
The tall people can join me upstairs.
Yes, that's right.
You
can go right in front.
You can see me, right? You can see me.
We can see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was so encouraging to see you smiling. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah, you're very proud of you.
We will take this photo and send it straight to Berlin. Hello, this is Australia greeting you, and we can contribute. That's something like that, a bit more diplomatic. But, this is what it is. Brett will give us instructions.
Okay.
I think we move a little bit forward.
Yeah, we move a bit forward. So as long as you can see the camera can see you. You ready, Brett? Oh no, it's a big
Find his eyes one for him.
Oh yes, give him one.
Do you want to come and join us? Okay.
We have a battery expert in the amongst the presenters. Good. Yeah, that was synchronous. Can we have a wave to Berlin and you make one more? Ready?
I haven't made any yet.
Oh!
I'm getting tired of smiling. Come on.
This is a piece of art.
That's why I always think they should count, you know? So you smile.
Yeah. Hello, Berlin.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. May I ask the 10 presenters to stay a little longer and we take a photo of you. And then you can celebrate. We're really going to celebrate.
Okay. Could you please join me to thank all the staff of the Academy for doing a great job. Nancy, Lynn, Hugh, and all the people, Kate, and everybody who is here, who is not here, for a fantastic job. Thank you very much for everything what you have done. Thank you. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Jagadish.